Yeah.
Texas Tech has only been to 3 bowl games since 2013. But with a very experienced team, can 2020 be the year the Red Raiders get back to the postseason and then never look back? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Texas Tech Red Raiders college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our brand new website, thegridironexpert.com. And also follow us on social media over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So guys, Texas Tech is coming off a disappointing 4-8 season in year one under Matt Wells. Wells left the head coaching job at Utah State to come down to Lubbock, and we knew that 2019 was going to be a bit of a rebuild for Matt Wells. We knew it was going to be a chance for him to get his feet wet in the Big 12. So 4-8, disappointing to the Red Raider faithful, but kind of expected from a lot of people around the country. But one thing that I do think surprised a lot of people was how competitive Texas Tech really was. They did go 4-8, but they had 4 losses, guys, decided by 3 points or less. A field goal or less in 4 of their losses, meaning that if a couple plays go their way, Texas Tech goes bowling in year one under Matt Wells. And now going into 2020, he does have a very experienced team. We all know this is Matt Wells' team now, guys. He didn't inherit anything left over from Cliff Kingsbury. This is Matt Wells' squad. And we take a look at their offense here, and we know that Texas Tech, they're known for their offense. And that's what they're going to rely on. Because when we get to their defense in a second, you're going to see how bad they really were last year. But this offense ranked 11th in the country in total offense last year, averaging almost 500 yards per game. Their passing offense was 7th in the country last year, well over 300 yards per game last year. And here's the thing. Jet Duffy did the majority of that work. Jet Duffy was quarterback for Texas Tech last year and was the main reason for those ridiculous stats that Wells' offense put up. Well, then Duffy decided to transfer, which means Alan Bowman is now going to be the quarterback, which is great if you're a Red Raiders fan because we know that Alan Bowman, when he's fully healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. But that's the key. He has to stay healthy. He battled injuries in 2018. He battled injuries basically all of 2019, resulting in Duffy leading the charge for the Red Raiders. So Bowman at quarterback, when he's healthy, Tech will have one of the best offenses in the conference. If he goes down, the Red Raiders might struggle a little bit. He does have a great supporting cast, though. He has SaRodorick Thompson at running back, rushed for over 700 yards and 12 touchdowns last year. And he does return his top 3 out of 4 pass catchers from 2019, of course, led by T.J. Vasher. So this is a very solid Texas Tech offense that they averaged over 30 points per game last year, and now expected to be around that mark, if not better, in 2020. The defense, though, that's where Texas Tech's postseason hopes are going to be made or broken. Because although they returned 8 starters on the defensive side of the ball, it's 8 starters from a defense that was 127th in the country last year. They allowed nearly 500 yards per game. So they were putting up nearly 500 yards per game, but then they were allowing almost 500 yards per game. They were 128th in the country when it came to their passing defense, allowing over 300 yards per game in 2019. And they lose some big stars. We know that. They lose Broderick Washington. They lose Jordan Brooks. They lose Douglas Coleman, who had 8 interceptions in 2019, a ridiculous stat. But on the flip side, they do return Eli Howard, who led the team in sacks last year with 5. They return Riko Jeffers, the second leading tackler for the Red Raiders last year. And then you've got Adrian Fry at cornerback. So they have talent at all 3 major skill positions on the defensive side of the ball. And in year 2 under Matt Wells, I can guarantee you the defense will improve, and they're not going to rank almost last in the country when it comes to defense. So we take a look at Texas Tech this year. Can they get to the postseason? Well, we've got them starting 3-0. And we know, again, at the time of this filming, The Big Ten and the Pac-12 are the only teams, and only conferences, I should say, that have announced they will not be playing non-conference games. As of this filming, those are the only two conferences that have announced that. Texas Tech did have a game scheduled at home against Arizona, a team they lost to by 14 on the road last year, but we believe that the Red Raiders, had they played that game, they would have defeated the Wildcats. And that win over Arizona will be reflected in our final record here. So we have them starting off 3-0, should take easy care of UTEP and Alabama State, win over Arizona. If you don't want to count it, fine, they're 2-0. They then hit conference play, and that's where it's going to get interesting, and that's where it's going to get very difficult for Tech. Start off against Iowa State here. They only lost to the Cyclones by 10 points, so that's not too bad. Lost to Iowa State by 10 points in 2019. Very respectable showing. But this is an Iowa State team, guys, that has the chance to be one of the best in school history. Brock Purdy is back as one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, and I'd put him up there probably in my top 10 in the country. So Brock Purdy returns at quarterback. He's got one of his best tight ends in the country, and Charlie Kohler back as a pass catcher. And that defense for Iowa State, guys, they return 9, and that includes a very strong and senior-led secondary. So I look at that. We know Texas Tech's going to be a pass-heavy team. The game is at Ames, not an easy place to play. I like the Cyclones in this one. So Matt Wells and his squad, after a strong start, take their first loss of the season to Matt Campbell and Iowa State, one of the top 3 teams, in my opinion, in the Big 12 this season. They then kick off October with a home game against West Virginia, and a lot of things are going into this factor, a lot into this result, guys, because we're giving Texas Tech a win here, and when you look at the numbers, it just makes sense. They beat the Mountaineers by 21 points last year in Morgantown, all right? On the road, you win by 21. We know that West Virginia is going to improve this year, but we also know that Texas Tech is going to improve this year. And when I look at West Virginia, a couple key numbers stand out to me. The first is their passing defense. While Texas Tech's was way worse, West Virginia's was still 88th in the country, guys. It's not that great. So I think Alan Bowman, assuming he's healthy, lights up this West Virginia secondary. And if this game were to turn into a shootout, a game where no defense is really being played, I like Texas Tech to have that offensive edge more than I like Jarrett Doege and West Virginia to own that offensive edge. Now, West Virginia is not a team that I think will hold up very well in a shootout. They had one of the worst offenses in the country in 2019 and still are working their way up and rebuilding themselves under a second-year head coach in Neil Brown. So I like Texas Tech to get the job done in Lubbock. Coming off a bye week, I like them to get the job done against Baylor as well, a team who finished second in the Big 12 last year, made the Sugar Bowl last year, was just one win away from the college football playoff had they defeated Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. And while this may come as a surprise to many, keep in mind as well, Texas Tech went on the road last year to face off against Baylor and only lost by 3 points in overtime. I believe it was in double or triple overtime at that. So they lose to Baylor, a very good Baylor team, an 11-win Baylor team in Waco by 3 points in overtime with Jet Duffy as quarterback. Now, Texas Tech gets Baylor at home, off a bye. Baylor dealing with a brand new head coach in Dave Aranda and only 2 returning starters on defense. And while I do think Aranda works some magic, I do think the defense isn't going to be abysmal like some think. I do think that Texas Tech's able to get the job done here. If they want to go bowling, they've got to win those winnable games at home. And I certainly view Baylor as that. I certainly view Baylor as a winnable game at home, and I like they're getting that week of rest prior to it as well. Not to mention this game's also on a Thursday night, and we know how crazy some of those midweek games can be. So Texas Tech starting off hot, guys. If you count this Arizona game, they are 5-1 going into their final 6 games of the season. Well, again, I really do think Matt Wells' squad takes a step forward in 2020. It's really just going to come down to health and this how much that defense can improve. It doesn't have to improve drastically, but if they can improve from 127th in total to 110, 115, it could result in a few more victories. Remember, 4 losses by 3 points or less. They then return home to take on Texas. And this is where the schedule starts to get difficult, guys, because they're playing some of the top teams in the Big 12 here in their back 6. You got Texas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and then scary games against TCU and Kansas State that are no pushovers. I think they're going to drop this game to the Longhorns here. Their in-state rival. I think they'd fall to Texas, a team they lost to by 25 last year. Were annihilated by the Longhorns, 49-24. And we know this is a big year for Tom Herman. And I look at a lot of games for Texas this year thinking Herman cannot lose that game. I know they have tough games against LSU and Oklahoma, Oklahoma State on the road, but the games against mediocre or a little below average opponents, Texas can't afford to lose to anymore. People are getting a little antsy. They're getting a little frustrated with Tom Herman. This is one of those games. So even though the game is in Lubbock, I think Texas's defense steps up big in this one. They do have a very, very strong secondary. They've got a brand new defensive coordinator in Chris Ash coming over from Rutgers. And of course, Sam Ehlinger is still one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and in the entire nation as well. So I think Texas does come on the road, take care of business here. And I think Oklahoma State and Kansas State do the same as well on their home turf. Oklahoma State, a team that Texas Tech beat 45-35 last year. And I think that was a bit of a shock for some people. I think that was a surprise that in Lubbock, not only did Texas Tech put up that many points, but they won by double digits against an eventual 8-win Oklahoma State team. But this Cowboys team is way different than they were last year. Last year, they were still dealing with a relatively brand new quarterback in Spencer Sanders. He was only a freshman, guys. And although he got hurt at the end of last year, he should be back fully healthy. And he really started to turn a corner in the later part of last season before he went down with that injury. So you've got a dual threat quarterback. You've got one of the best running backs in the country in Chuba Hubbard, rushed for over 2,000 yards last year. A great wide receiver duo in Tylan Wallace and Dylan Stoner. And then everybody returns on defense for Oklahoma State. Factor in home field advantage and a potential revenge game in there as well. The Cowboys should take care of business at home. They are Big 12 title contenders. And then Kansas State is a team that Texas Tech only lost to by 3 last year. One of those losses that we mentioned. Fell to the Wildcats 30-27. And while Chris Kleiman really surprised everybody with how well he did at Kansas State last year, coming from North Dakota State to Kansas State and winning 8 games in year 1 in the Big 12 at the FBS level, was unbelievable. But basically all they return offensively is Skylar Thompson. They return just Skylar Thompson. That doesn't really give me a lot of hope for them offensively. But what does give me hope is the 7 returning starters defensively. And we know that Chris Kleiman is a very defensive-minded coach. We saw that last year. I think we're going to see that again this year. The defense going to bail out Kansas State in a lot of games this year as their offense kind of sputters like they did last year. I think they're able to get the job done against Texas Tech at home. So after a very strong start, 5-1, they lose 3 straight. They're 5-4, but we have them clinching bowl eligibility here at home against Kansas. They are 6-4, and in year 2 under Matt Wells, Texas Tech is going bowling. I think a lot of people like this Kansas team this year, and I don't know if you like them because you genuinely think they're going to be good, or that they're going to improve, or you just like them because you want to believe in Les Miles. Here's the thing. I believe in Les Miles. I love Les Miles. But I know that Kansas is going to struggle this year. And even though Kansas beat Texas Tech last year 37-34 in Lawrence, in one of the wildest endings you may ever see in college football, a game that should have gone to overtime, even though all that happened last year, Kansas to me will take a step back. They lose too much. They lose their star quarterback in Carter Stanley. Really, to me, all they have on offense is a solid wide receiver core and Puka Williams at running back, but they don't have a great quarterback throwing them the ball, at least not yet. The defense is going to struggle mightily. I think Texas Tech lights them up at home, knowing their final 2 games that are ahead. They probably need to win this game to get to bowl eligibility, and I think they seize that opportunity and get the job done. They then go back on the road to take on TCU, another one of those close losses we mentioned. They fell to the Horned Frogs 33-31 last year. And this is the TCU team, guys, that Kerry Batterson is doing a great job with, at least in the transfer portal and on the recruiting trail. Max Duggan is back, freshman quarterback last year, returns for another year, obviously, and is a dual threat QB. Very dangerous through the air, but even more dangerous on the ground. Not to mention they landed a 5-star running back in Zach Evans and may be having a 5-star linebacker transfer in Marcel Brooks coming over from LSU, if of course he can play immediately. So this TCU team that even though they went 5-7 last year, kind of like Texas Tech, was a story of those close losses. They went 5-7 but had 6 losses by 1 possession. Win a few of those, they're going bowling. Win a lot of those, they're Big 12 title contenders. TCU improves this year, maybe not drastically, but enough to get to the postseason. They win this game at home. And then I do think Texas Tech drops this game at home to Oklahoma, even though it is on senior night, even though this is a trendy upset pick for some, because last time here, Texas Tech did get Oklahoma a fight. They were in that game until Bowman went out with an injury. Now look at this Oklahoma team. I think a lot of people think they're going to take a step back. I'm just not buying it. I think maybe offensively they don't put up as ridiculous of numbers as they have in years past, but I do think Spencer Rattler is the real deal, and I really do think Alex Grinch is going to do a great job with that very experienced Oklahoma defense. They are still playoff contenders. They are still the team to beat in the Big 12 until proven otherwise, and I think they do come on the road in the season finale and snag a win over the Red Raiders. But the beauty of it all is it doesn't matter. We give Texas Tech a 6-6 record in 2020, which means they are going bowling. Now, yes, I know you don't want to count that Arizona game. They're 5-6, and I don't know how the NCAA and the conferences will decide who gets to go bowling or not if they only play conference games. I don't know how that works. But to me, if the Arizona game was going to be played, they go 6-6. They go to the postseason. Even if it's not played, you see Texas Tech take a major step forward, both offensively and defensively, once again showing that Matt Wells is the right man for the job. And I really, like we said at the beginning of the video, after this season, do not see Texas Tech taking many steps back in the years to come. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, check out everything down in the description below. Visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com, and our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.